begin at 10:03 a.m. Ask everybody to please rise. Representative Kidogo, can you please lead us in prayer?
Let us remember that we are in the presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lord, for allowing us to gather here today. Please continue to bless and guide us so that we may do your will in all things. And may all our actions benefit the people of Guam as a whole and bring out the best in us as your people. Amen.
Amen.
Name, everyone please recite the Inifresti. Inifresti. Ginimastakilo ki hinasoku. Imastakilo ki kurasonpo. Zanimaspigo naninasinyahu. Hu oferecem maisazo. Para pai hu protege, zanifendi, ihinengi, ikultura, ilinguahi, iari, ihanum, zanitano samoro. Ninin shokku diretsu ginazu ustata, esti huat fitma, gihilo I Biblia, zanibanderahu, ibanderan guahan. I call Representative Cooper to please lead us in the singing of the Fanogi Samoro. Now the singing of the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. All may be seated. So again, good morning, everyone, and I'd like to acknowledge that this is our very first eco-green session, explaining why all representatives have their laptops out. Again, we are the youth, so we want to lead the movement in preserving our natural resources and keeping our island beautiful. First item up on the agenda, Vice Speaker, we're going through a roll call vote. Madam Secretary, if you lead us.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Taking roll call. Representative Bourgeoisie. Representative Booty. Representative Jackasalem. Representative Iriarty. Representative Jimenez. Representative Katsura. Representative Cooper. Representative Lanuza. Representative Lazama. Representative Malaga. Representative Manabusan. Speaker Orsini. Representative Ricky Orsini.
Astaguizo.
Representative Kichichu. Representative Kanata. Representative Quinley. Representative Butch Rubio. Representative Cara Rubio. Representative Salalila. Representative Santos. Representative Savea. Representative Shelton. Representative Shin. Representative Wang. Representative Gill. Representative Sabetti. Mr. Speaker, with 13 representatives present, we meet quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. There being no items for Section 7, through 11, if you want me to scratch that out. We now move to Section 12, to the introduction and first reading of bills. Vice Speaker Senior recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to call on Representative Chirag to introduce Bill number 6. Thank you.
Representative Kirigwa, you're recognized. Oh, and as well, please note that Representative Hills and Representative duly noted.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Mr. Speaker, we have 14 members present.
Please note that we have 14 members present here. Now back to the first reading file. Representative Hills, you are recognized.
I know in tradition that under the roll call on the agenda, there's supposed to be motions before first reading. I just conferred with Speaker King on that, and I'm just wondering if your agenda reflects that. And if you don't have it reflected, can we take a minute recess just to go over and reconcile?
Yeah, that is correct. There's no section on motions on the agenda.
So can we take a minute recess?
Yeah, we'll take a minute. We now move to Section F for motions. Representative Kenga, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move to table Bill 28 as introduced by Representative Booty, as well as Bill 29 as introduced by Representative Chirag.
Are there any objections? No objections. Bill 28 and 29 are tabled. Any other motions? Representative Hills, you are recognized.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to place a resolution sponsored and introduced by myself into first reading file, which is a resolution in support of Bill 317. So it doesn't have an assigned number, which the Committee on Rules can give an assigned number under first reading file.
Any objections to Representative Hill's resolution? It is then placed in the first reading file. Any other motions? Representative Kanga, you're recognized.
I'd also like, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to move a resolution relative to the appointment of Representative Lanuzo. Its number to be given by the Committee on Rules to first reading file.
Any objections? Representative Kanga's resolution is then placed into first reading file. Are there any other motions?
Are we gonna?
Representative Kanga?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding House rules, I'd like to first move on the two resolutions that have passed to first reading file and then place the committee into the Committee on Rules.
Any objections? We now move for both resolutions to now be moved to the first reading file and first on the agenda. Representative Hills, you are recognized.
Thank you, Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the resolution. My resolution is in support of Bill 317-31, and it is the support and the intent to drug test new and continuing applicants in the Federal Assistance Welfare Program. I did provide an oral speech for that, so I'd like to go ahead and read that out. No matter on which side you are on this topic, it brings a great amount of discussion and emotion to the conversation. The state of Florida has recently passed a law that states that any new welfare claim that is submitted, the person must have a drug test done before receiving any benefits. The claimant is responsible for paying for this test, but if the test is negative, the person is reimbursed for the cost of that test. If they fail, they will not be supplemented back for the test as well as not be eligible for welfare for 1 year, and this is reflected in Bill 317-31. I strongly believe that if you're going to get assistance from the government, you should be expected to abide by the same standards as those who have to take a test to get a job. Since employees who work to pay taxes, to help find entitlement programs, have to take the same test in order to work, the people on welfare should do just the same. The basis of this course of action is that there is much corruption within the welfare system, along with multi-generation families. This is one way to imply consequences among wrongdoers. The wrongdoers are hookybacking on those who abide by the same rules and regulations of the welfare assistance program. Those who say that drug testing is wrong are because it infringes on their constitutional right as laid out in the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects the American citizen from unwarranted and illegal search and seizures. This issue, the Fourth Amendment, pertains to privacy, and I believe that if people are looking for public assistance, then the issue of privacy does not and should not be precedence for objecting to the intent of Bill 317. I agree to the intent of drug testing. Some may disagree and even conclude that I am on the wrong side of this issue. In response to those with an objectification of this legislation, we should entrust the matter with the Attorney General to validate the illegalities of this bill. I believe there is a place for public assistance for those that really need it, but I do not think there should be public assistance for those using it to buy controlled substances. The public assistance program is one of the most expensive programs in the United States that we implement. If the working people of Guam are mandated to a drug test, then those who are receiving the public's money should just as much be subjugated to the same. I call upon those who are on the fence on this issue, who have done all they can to curb illegal drug abuse on Guam, to view this issue in the same light. if you are continuing to let people have free handouts and they are using it for illegal drugs, then I guess we are very much helping them and in return gaining their votes in the next election. Many of those families have children and rely on public assistance so they will not go hungry. The goal is to try to make sure that we are saving the taxpayers' money and getting the best of interest for every buck, and we are eliminating those people who are abusing drugs in the welfare system. Bill 317 addresses repeated offenders with the renewed opportunity over a length of time. In the same manner, it might not be the best route to take, but this piece of legislation has compassion for those who we are trying to help when no one else is going to but government. I argue that reform is the key word, and by not helping someone in need, in the end, could end up costing taxpayers even more. It appears that when we deny a person access to temporary assistance, it flies in the face of their becoming taxpayers again. It is the legitimate government function of promoting the safety and welfare of children and adults. The legislature should declare that the best of interests of a significant portion of the island's population are served by ensuring that they are free of the physical and mental impairments associated with drug dependence. The legislature should further reaffirm its compelling interest in providing safeguards to eliminate the misappropriation of entitlement benefits coming from any federal assistance program. Think on the side of progress. 36 states have pursued laws requiring those on welfare to pass drug tests, and several states have already passed such laws. We must pay careful attention to our veterans, those who have welfare assistance, furthering their educations, and who served in the defense of our nation, that we do not insult and degrade their integrity and service. However, we as the local government should work to prevent ourselves from having the federal government buying back clean pee. The intent of this bill is that during these tough economic times, we want to know that welfare checks are being used on necessities and not wasted on the trade and switch for food products for controlled substances. We want people to use welfare to better themselves, use it as support in finding a job, and assist citizens and their families. Sizuas Maasi, Mr. Speaker, and to the body for allowing me to bring this resolution to the floor and discussion. This is a very critical point at times when it is tough economic times, that many of our families on the island are relying on welfare assistance programs. We understand that it's to get them jump-started in the economy because it is hard times to find a job. To find a job where you are trying to take an application but then still have to take a drug test and pay for that on your own. At the same time, those families looking for opportunities have kids and children. Let me just go ahead and address first that this Bill 317, we need to get rid of the sentiment that if your parent or both your parents who are subjugated to a drug test and you're tested negative, then the kids will not get that assistance. That is absolutely false. The Bill 317 does state that if your parents both are drug tested and tested negative, then a public guardian, another individual deemed necessary or afforded to by the Department of Public Health, would also be given opportunity to take a drug test, and if positive, then again, we go down the line. If it's negative, then of course that child will be given those the program benefits through that public guardian. I understand that there will be opposition within the body and also within the Guam legislature and the community of Guam, because we don't want to generalize public assistance applicants as everyone as drug doers. But as I mentioned in my speech, it's only a particular portion of these people within our community that are hooky backing, that are riding upon the backs of others who are struggling and who fortunately do find a job later on down the line and are getting free handouts. My intention in supporting Bill 317 through this resolution, Mr. Speaker, is that we need to eradicate, we need to provide more pressure upon those Those few within the public welfare assistance program that are getting free handouts, we need to move them. There are so many others within our community that need this assistance program, and we need to get that program to them, but not to those who are providing this as a trade and switch for food products versus controlled substances. This is happening today. It's realistic. We need to make those tough decisions. But coming from the youth and the Youth Congress, we have a responsibility to our counterparts, those who are under parents who may be at the same time, their parents are doing those trade and switch for food products and drug abuse, drug dependence, and probably they're not getting that necessities they need. They're struggling. They're trying to find who has Ichibang, who has corned beef, who has Spam, who has cereal for breakfast before school. They can't get that because their parents and those who are their guardians are making, inhumane, unethical decisions. We need to look forward and say, this has got to stop. We need to put our responsibilities where our mouth are, not just speak, but walk it. And even if we get opposition because we're looking for votes for the next election, we need to move through that glass mirror or that glass wall and crack that and say, hey, these kids that are our counterparts that we have responsibility for in the Youth Congress, you're safeguarded. We're going to take care of you. We're going to do it through Bill 317. And Mr. Speaker, this is what my resolution is for, is to support the intent. The bill has not gone up for public hearing, but if my colleagues support the resolution, we can also amend our resolution here to address Bill 317 through amendment if we have any objections in the particular bill. And I look forward to that dialogue that we can have under discussion. Which actually brings me to an important part, and I'm sorry, it's been almost a year since I've been out of the Youth Congress, since the 27th, but I believe I did make a motion to place into second reading file for discussion. Is that correct? Okay. Well, notwithstanding that, Mr. Speaker, I do want to make that motion. It is the responsibility of myself to place into second reading file. I'm sorry about that.
Are there any objections? It is done.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I am transparent about what I do, and I am transparent about what needs to be done with this resolution. So, Mr. Speaker, with that and what I have discussed and talked about, I hope that my colleagues will come to dialogue with me if we do need to amend the resolution or if there's any questions. Thank you.
The floor is now open for discussion and debate. Representative, you're recognized.
Cesar Mossy, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I would like to recommend my kind colleague for introducing this measure. I believe Representative Iriarte also mentioned his concern about this issue to me. And it was actually, like Representative Hills mentioned, many other states have already brought this issue into their public law. And I wholly support this piece of legislation, not because I feel these restrictions need to be made to our welfare system, but I believe that by instituting these drug tests for families who need assistance, if we are able to point out those families who need the assistance because they're involved with these drugs and less than reputable things, we can help them find the help they really need. So children who go to school, who have parents who are addicted to drugs, who don't know where to turn, who can't make ends meet because their parents are dealing with drugs, I think this is a way to reach out to them. If they live off the welfare system, maybe this is one way we can actually reach out to them and get them the help they need if, the parental system is involved with drugs. So I wholly support this bill, and I ask my kind colleagues to join me. Thank you.
This is Mossy, Representative Kitagwa. Vice Speaker Senior, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to pose to the author of this resolution. Am I correct that the welfare recipients will have to pay for the drug testing kit with their own money out of the pocket? Thank you.
Representative Hills, would you like to answer the question?
Absolutely, and I appreciate the Vice Speaker's question. It is a valid question that was asked by my other colleagues next to me. Yes, indeed, you, as an applicant, the new applicant and continuing applicants do have to pay for this drug test. It's $30. However, if you are tested negative, then that reimbursement does come back to you in the $30 total in the federal assistance program, the government of Guam will pay for that in addition to the assistance you're getting if you're tested negative. If you're tested positive, you, of course, we don't need to reimburse people who have dirty pee, but you will go through a total 1 year rehabilitation program. And when I mentioned renewed opportunity, after 1 year is completed, then you can apply again. And you will have to pay $30 for a drug test, but if you again are tested negative, then you will be reimbursed for that. $30 in addition, plus the welfare assistance that you're going to get. Thank you.
Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have some reservations about the resolution I have discussed with Representative Hills. I understand the intent behind the resolution and behind the bill, but the only thing I want to make people aware of is that there may be a very possible devastating effect because of the language of the bill, and also because of just the way it's written, and that is the stigmatization and the leading to a very, very harsh stereotype of the poor. Because you'll start to associate poor people with drug use in every aspect. And if you continue to push this kind of agenda with specifically for welfare recipients, what you begin to have is that it will lead to middle class versus low class struggles. And one thing we all got to realize is that things like this are introduced to make the middle class kind of struggle with the low class, but the high class just sits there laughing because they're not affected at all. I mean, this money, the middle class say it takes from our taxpayers' money, but the high class, what about the low class and the middle class getting together to address the inequalities that the high class have? And that's something that I just want to bring to mind. Representative Hills and I have talked about this, and we're completely cooperating. But it's just another thing that we got to realize is that what are the roots of why so many people are on welfare? I like to call out the senators and try to address that. And a huge part of it is, is it our relationship with the federal government that leads to the economic struggles that we're currently in? And if so, why don't we push that agenda? I think that we need it's the intent's okay, but I mean, I think it's curing a symptom. It's not curing an illness. So that's just my little reservation about the bill. And I'd also like to ask a question is, because I do not know, who pays for the rehabilitation process that they will go through if they fail the drug test? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hills, would you like to answer the question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, thank you to my colleague of the Independent Party, Representative Cooper, for asking the question. I'm always open to questions, and there's nothing wrong about that. The legislation, who pays for the rehabilitation program? The taxpayers do, the taxpayers of Guam. I want to go ahead and rewind a little bit that none of the local government or the local community taxpayer dollars are going to the federal government to pay for these welfare assistance programs. We are getting this free assistance program from the federal government without no cost to the people of Guam. The only cost to the people of Guam are those who are tested positive and have to go through the rehabilitation program. That's where our taxpayers' dollars in the local community are going to. And that's what we, as a responsibility of our government, should be doing, is to make sure that these people who go through a rehabilitation program can become taxpayers again. Not hooky-backing on some welfare assistance program. How are we going to benefit from someone who's continuing to take public assistance and do a trade and switch? I don't see the benefit of a trade and switch and that diverted money coming back or benefit coming back to the people of Guam. If anything, if the local government does not regulate drug testing for applicants, then however other way that these people are tested positive, maybe through probation periods with the court, then again, the government of Guam is still going to have to pay for that rehabilitation program. What we are trying to do is to make sure we can get these people to be taxpayers again, to make sure they're using this benefit to get a boost to their family, making sure that they're fed, and at the same time that they go out and find a job. That's where their tax dollars are coming from if they become taxpayers again. But if we're giving free handouts, we're basically, I won't drug test you, and I hope you vote for me. But continuing do what you do, and hopefully your kids are healthy. I'll probably see them at the gym or the Hadza Youth Center or any other center, bugging off $1 to buy King Car. But that's not what we should be promoting. But I do understand where my colleague is coming from. I do not support generalizing at all any of the welfare assistant applicants as drug doers. But those people within that program do know, Mr. Speaker, that there are people who are hooky-backing on them too. And it's a sad case, but we're living with that because that's the reality. I also support that maybe 317-31 doesn't imply it, but we need to drug test leaders. Leaders who need to lead by example. I took a drug test about a month ago because I had to get an application to work at the Department of Education. I paid for it, but I didn't get reimbursed. It didn't come in my paycheck. It didn't get reimbursed back to my paycheck, so I didn't see that extra $25 or $30 come back in. That could have gone to gas or other necessities, but that's a responsibility to prove, and I feel so sad about that. We have to prove our integrity. We have to prove our truthful, honest integrity. We have to pay for it. But that's because there are others out there that are taking advantage of this program. They're taking advantage of the taxpayers' dollars of the community abroad in the nation. And then if they're tested positive, we have to pay for the rehabilitation program for up to a year. That's coming out of local tax dollars, but we have to stop that. We have to make these hard decisions. And I'm going to send a message that every welfare assistance program applicant, you are not all drug abusers or dependent upon drugs or controlled substances. But I as a young youth leader, are standing up to say that we have a responsibility for those kids, those children, okay? Just because they're not age of 14 to 25, those who are 10 to 13, we still have a responsibility. They are future leaders. We need to make sure that those necessities get to them, and not to a trade and switch type of ideal food for drug substances. But yes, we need to see through the lines and mention that not every applicant is a drug abuser, but there are a small portion. But we need to eradicate them out of this program and get this program to other needy families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Kanga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's great to hear everyone talking, and I was sitting back here trying to figure out at what point are we going to come to an agreement here. I have to give credit to the author of this resolution. I commend him for it. And I also want to point out my colleague, Representative Cooper. You brought up some really legitimate points about the middle and low class and whose burden is this coming out of. If my representatives could give me the minute to share a story, if we're not listening to us talk, let's talk about stories, right? Let's say, for example, the Smith family. Now, the Smith family works for the government. The government's trying to reduce its size, so they get laid off. Let's say Smith family is a single parent with 3 children who is running low on their savings account and decides that, you know what, I think it's time I go check the government for some support. To find out that at the point where she's about to get evicted, she has to take a drug test before she can get an appointment to be approved. What does she do? What subsidies does the government provide to Mrs. Smith or Ms. Smith, who's having it hard, is already laid off, no income, and is going there and saying, I don't have $30, and is being turned away by the upper class or being turned away by businesses who say, no payment, no service. We leave her in the dark. And now Mrs. Smith is just one situation. Have we thought about that? Have we thought about if it's no cost to the government to reimburse them, but what about the cost to rehabilitate them? So if she does fail, then what happens to our funds? Where does it come up from? Because UOG, we just finished arguing, trying to keep our tuition at a certain rate because funds were low, and here we are adding another deficit, adding another problem, which we can't afford. I think we can address this at a better way. I mean, even for current users of this program, if they have to reapply, they're given an appointment. So if they're told that their appointment is next September, technically that person will say, well, you know what, I got a couple months to sober up before I take my drug test. Then do we solve the problem? No, we don't. It won't eradicate what the root is. Drug use and drug abuse, and even the whole how children get to keep their benefits is still questionable, because what if the children are under drugs? I mean, we're fighting a war on drugs, but at whose neck do we hold this to? I asked my colleagues, this is a great intent, yes, but if anything, I think we need to amend it or not support it. And although I commend it, because at first glance it's great, it looks at it, hey, you know what? We're going to fix this so that drug dealers aren't using federal money. But if they are, who's going to be paying for it? Government. Our government money. We can't afford that. We can't afford to turn away Mrs. Smith for assistance that she needs because she can't afford the $30. I asked my colleagues, if this story touches you, I just came up with it. I don't know if Mrs. Smith is real, but if she is, maybe she's hearing us and maybe we can address this. We won't solve this issue with Bill 317. And this resolution needs to come from our youth that's going to say, because it doesn't solve it, we won't support it. But we're willing to work with you so that we can find a solution. Thank you.
I'd like to, thank Representative Kinga for his sentiments, because I feel the way he does. But I fully support what Representative Hill said earlier about the inclusiveness of having not only welfare recipients but the leaders. I think that's another issue that needs to be addressed. Maybe that can be amended into Bill 317, because in its current form, I do not support it. I think that if we work together and we say, hey, are our leaders subject to drug tests? And if they're not, if we're going to drug test welfare recipients who are giving tax, we say where our tax money is going to, why would we not drug test the people that are making these laws, that are making these policies? So I would just like to say that I fully think that Mr. Representative his motion to include leaders into welfare testing is a positive thing. But I do agree that it does not solve the root of the problem, as Representative Kinga has said. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Vice Speaker Orsini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker Orsini. I like to thank Representative Cooper and Speaker Kinga for bringing up these concerns. These are the same concerns I had with the recipients of the public assistance paying for these drug kits out of their pocket. They may not afford it at the moment, or if they could afford it at the moment, that costs little Jose his school supplies. So I would not support this resolution to support Bill 317. And with the whole welfare, who's on welfare? Everyone's on welfare. Everyone in this room is on welfare, whether it be on public assistance through food stamps or fiscal welfare, getting tax breaks. Everyone's on welfare, or occupational welfare, the benefits you get from your job. Everyone's on welfare. So let's not stigmatize those who are using certain programs by the federal government with drug use, because we're all on welfare. So I would not support this bill, and I hope my colleagues will not either. Thank you.
Representative Hills, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I want to repudiate the remarks by the previous speaker, because not everybody in this room is on welfare. I want to go ahead and share another story, personally on my own story. I am not on any tax break. I am not on any welfare assistance program, but I wish my mom or my family were, because it really would help us, not using our own dollar bills. Secondly, I cannot afford to apply for a Pell Grant because I work at 2 jobs. I am applying for Statford loans, which is an assistance. However, that comes at a cost of paying an APR percentage back at the end of our graduation term at the university level. Thirdly, my tax dollars at both employments are being used to supply the pay and fee for these drug abusers in the rehabilitation programs. I find it an insult to tell me or any of my colleagues in here that we are on some kind of assistance. The only assistance that I am on is by the good wisdom, health, and light shed safeguard by our Almighty God, giving me good health to wake up each morning, to find a job, to further my education, to serve our nation for 6 years in the United States Army Reserves. And I do not find it necessary to tell me that if we are not going to support some kind of intent to eradicate, then we might as well sit back on our chairs and watch the movie go by and see how many more will come about to abuse this program. I will not be surprised that one day the United States government will cut off this program to the territory that does not supply any dollars to go to this program. However, there is a history that our island has provided service to this nation, and we could only at least go a little step further to say it is our responsibility to control and quarantine these drug abusers and not to shame our people. It needs to stop. We have seen this happen for as long as the federal government has supplied us with this welfare program. And I am not going to tell you how much I have provided to the local tax dollars or how much, when I was in the reserve for 6 years, how much my dollars have gone to the federal government, IRS. But at both sides, as an individual, I am helping our people through the welfare assistance program, funding for that. I'm helping for local tax dollars go to pay for a certain percentage of drug abusers in the rehabilitation program. But it's my responsibility to stand up and say, we need to start doing something. We can't just sit back and say, this is not going to work. We do need to come to agreement, and maybe we can start next year. But I'm not going to do that. It is my sole responsibility as a Democrat to safeguard the needy families within the middle and lower class people. I can care less about the high class because they're well off. But I'm tired of seeing my generation not get the necessities they need because their own guardians or parents are making wrong decisions. Maybe they are, even our own counterparts are on drug dependence, but that happens. And any time that we want to try to help them out too, we need to put money into it because that's how we get a rehabilitation for them to go into those programs so that they can be rid of that sentiment to take drugs or depend on drug substance. So, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to make that statement, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Vice Speaker Sini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to correct the Representative Hills on his statement that he is not on welfare. I know he's a student at the university, so am I.
Vice Speaker Sini, if you could direct
Yes.
remarks towards me.
So, with my statement about that everyone is on welfare, those who attend the University of Guam or the Guam Community College are on welfare because they pay tuition. Now, if it wasn't, we only pay half the amount of our tuition. In actuality, our tuition is 2 times the amount we pay. It is reduced by 50% because taxpayers pay that other 50. So if you look at it, the students at the University of Guam, including myself and the former speaker who spoke before me, is on welfare because taxpayers pay that other 50% of our tuition. So I would just like to reiterate my statement. And as a Democrat, I would not support this bill. Thank you.
Representative Kirigua, you're recognized.
Sizus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Based on all the comments just made, I believe we all see there is a problem with how assistance from the government is being dispersed. Not only that, but how we help our people with all these negative things they have in their lives. So I make a motion to move us into a recess so that we may author some kind of amendment to this bill.
Any objections? We're now in a 5-minute recess. Back to order. The floor is still open for discussion and debate on resolution number 30, relative to supporting drug testing for those individuals on the welfare programs. Representative Kirigua, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, if I may offer this amendment to Representative Hill's bill. So the amendment would strike out the word support in the title and would insert relative to amendments recommended by the Guam Youth Congress to Bill 317, etc.
Can you please repeat that again, Representative Kirigua? Relative to amendment.
Relative to amendments recommended by the Guam Youth Congress to Bill 317, the rest of the title to follow.
Recommended by Guam Youth Congress.
Yes. And then the
And
rest
then
of the
rest
title
of the title
would
to
remain. So if we could get
So
a
on
vote
Speaker,
on that.
on Representative Kirigua's amendment, you are to strike out the word support in the title and to read relative to amendments recommended by the Guam Youth Congress of Bill 317-31, which also with the words, the second word of support, would you like to scratch that out as well, or is that maintained? So you're suggesting to scratch out as well the second word of support to replace it with regarding. Just the first support for Representative Kirigua's amendment. So your amendment, again, I will repeat it, is to strike out the first word, which is support, and it will begin to read, relative to amendments recommended by the Guam Youth Congress of Bill 317 and to support the drug test policy of every new and continuing applicant under the Federal Welfare Assistance for Needy Families Program. Is that correct, Representative Kirigua? Okay. Now, Representative Kirigua's amendment. No objections? Madam Secretary, please note of that. Representative Kengu, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm really thankful for the great discussion we've had with the colleagues, and hopefully this will come to a resolution. We'd like to make the following amendments: that on resolution, line number 4, to scratch out the words new applicants, continuing applicants under the federal welfare, and strike out line 5 in its entirety, and to replace it with the following. Number 1.
Sorry, Representative Kengu, is this your suggestion for an amendment?
Yes,
as well?
this is amendment.
Okay. Can you please repeat that again?
Okay. Mr. Speaker, under line item 4, to strike out the words new applicants, continuing applicants under the federal welfare, and strike out line 5 in its entirety, and to replace it with the following amendment. Number 1, that for the drug test, it be at no cost to the drug testee unless that person were to test positive, and that the government award a contract to the lowest bidder to the company who will offer its services for the drug test. This would provide that the ones taking the drug tests would not have to provide for any sort of fund. It would be billed, if negative, to the federal government to cover the costs, and if positive, would be billed to them. The second, Mr. Speaker, is that for those tested positive, that they be referred to the substance abuse program so that federal monies can be used to help support the rehabilitation of those tested positive. This will allow us to remove the burden on government funds and instead focus it on funds available to us by Uncle Sam.
You think I can get a copy of that, Ms. Representative Kenga?
Yeah,
of your amendment?
sure, Mr. Speaker.
So in summary, because that is actually a lot of verbiage, in summary, so basically you want to put the burden of payments for both rehabilitation and the drug test itself on the federal government.
It will, because in a sense, I believe the original intent of the bill was that the federal government will provide it through reimbursement. But rather than it going into their welfare account, we should separate those funds so that when the individual is cleared of a negative drug test, those funds be paid to the vendor to provide for the service. But this is so that no one pays anything for the drug test, unless, of course, that person were to test positive. And if they do, and they follow the law that says they have to get into rehabilitation, that it come out of not government funds, but federal.
And please get me a copy of that. So on Representative Kenga's amendment, any objections? Your amendment is passed. Representative
One
Kenga,
more
you're
amendment,
recognized.
Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the author to place all representatives of the Youth Congress as co-sponsor of resolution as amended.
Any objections? Representative Cooper, is that an objection? Any objections on Representative Kenga's motion to place all members of the Guam Youth Congress as co-sponsors of resolution number 30? No objections?
I agree the resolution is good, but I still feel like it doesn't address the dire need of the problem that I'm addressing, so I do not want to be put on the list. Is that okay?
It's up to you, Representative Cooper.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Secretary, please note Vice Speaker Orsini.
Thank you, Speaker. I like the new amendments, although I agree does not solve the main issue, and I would still not support or would like to be co-sponsor of this resolution. Thank you.
Are there any other representatives that wish to decline to have their name be put on the resolution? That being said, Madam Secretary, please note that Representative Cooper and Vice Speaker Orsini will not have their names on the resolution as well. The floor is still open for discussion and debate. Are there any other? Representative Bourgeois, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. I have a concern to the author of the bill that once you're tested positive for illegal substances, are you going to be required to go to a rehab program? Because if you're tested positive, someone that has been hooked on something that's illegal and deemed illegal by the public health or whoever that deems it illegal, they're probably going to be addicted to it, and they would do whatever it takes to get that substance, and this might lead to increasing the crime rate here on Guam. So, Representative Hills, how do we address that? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Bushwani. Your question is, I believe, is if someone is tested positive on drug dependence or drug abuse, are they mandated to a rehabilitation program? Absolutely, yes. How it is mandated is once it's taken into the court, they are under probation, which, of course, under probation, you are in a rehabilitation program at the Department of Public Health and Social Services, Substance Abuse. But how it's already a mandate today under local law. So I'm not too sure. Does that answer the question? Vice
Speaker Orsini, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With Representative Bourgeois's statement regarding the rehabilitation, I know those who are addicted, no matter the intent, there's a chance of relapse, and they would have to go back to the rehabilitation center. I don't know how many times. So, with that, I would not support this resolution or bill. And with the comment I previously made earlier, though no one should be offended that they are on welfare. We should remove this stigma and disassociate the two of being a drug user and being on welfare. We should disassociate, and no one should be offended, or that's what I would like to say. So I would not support this resolution, and I ask my other colleagues also. Thank you.
Representative Kirigoy, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to place this bill as amended expediently into the third reading file.
Anybody second the motion? Will we hold on off of with Representative Kirigoy's motion and proceed with Representative Hills? Would you still like to discuss on the matter? Just to close, there's a motion to place resolution number 30 into the third reading file. Are there any objections? Or just you want to speak on the motion? So then we're not closing it. Okay, so
Actually, it's just to, the author always has to close on whenever no one else is going to speak. So, but I could speak on the motion. It's just a gratitude to the representative to throw it into the third reading file. I really appreciate that, and to vote on it. However, I think it's very important, Mr. Speaker, as a leader, regardless of what political party you're on, that you also have to recognize your other colleagues in the room and on the floor that have opposed views or in support views, that you thank them for the dialogue, because that's what good leaders do. And that's what a body of Youth Congress representatives, we should be doing. And regardless of the opposition, we're always going to agree to disagree. That is always going to last as long as humanity lasts, that kind of philosophy. However, again, it is our responsibility to start a discussion, a conversation that will bring a lot of emotion into the conversation. But it is our responsibility to start now and not relax and say, well, we need to give it some thought and let a year go by. But what we have done today, Mr. Speaker, I am truly proud of. The work that we are doing to start the dialogue, to start amending a resolution, because there is some concerns, and I really appreciate that. I am a representative from the village of Agate that has its own fair share of welfare program recipients, and we need to step up to the plate to defend those who are abiding by the rules and regulations, and then also try to help those who are tested positive, if they are, and to try to get them to be taxpayers again. And if they go back once or twice to rehab, then Godspeed, that if they do have children, that the children will be the first thought in their mind in making decisions to take drugs. And I hope to pray to God for every single person that is making decisions that is in the best interests of their children. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleagues. Again, I ask for their support. I also second the motion to place resolution number LS into third reading file.
any objections? Resolution number 30 is now placed into the third reading file for voting. In doing so, I would like to place all resolutions. We go through all resolutions first and then proceed on to third reading file for voting for each individual resolution. So now on resolution number 31, Representative Kirigoy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Resolution 31, relative to appointing former Harvard Christian Academy representative Jethro Lanuza to represent the municipality of Dededo. Be it resolved by the Guam Youth Congress, Mr. Lanuza is 18 years of age and a resident of Dededo and is eligible to represent a municipality or school in the Guam Youth Congress. He became part of the Youth Congress in 2009 as a representative of said school and continues to serve as the school's representative, although he graduated earlier in this year. Mr. Lanuza is no longer eligible to represent Harvest Christian Academy, but is still eligible to represent the municipality of Dededo. Be it resolved that the Guam Youth Congress recognizes Mr. Lanuza, that he has been an active representative and asset to the Guam Youth Congress, and be it resolved that the Guam Youth Congress has received communication that Mr. Lanuza has an expressed interest in being involved with the 28th Guam Youth Congress and has a desire to continue serving the youth of Guam by any means possible. Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to move this bill into the second reading file for discussion.
Any objections? Resolution number 31 is then placed in second reading file. Representative Kidagwa, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for the information of the body, I was talking to my good colleague, Representative Lanuza, and he made mention that this was kind of a housekeeping issue that he would like to clear up. So Mr. Lanuza has been with us since 2009. He did graduate. So just to keep in line with our own bylaws and standing rules, we'll be transferring him to represent the municipality of Dededo. And I make a motion to place this into the third reading file.
Session is now called back to order. We now move on to third reading file. Madam Secretary, if you please lead us in a roll call vote. Madam Secretary. Yes.
Second roll call, Mr. Speaker. Representative Bujwani. Representative Booty. Representative Iriarty. Representative Hills. Representative Jackasalem. Representative Jimenez. Representative Katsura. Representative Cooper. Representative Lanuza. Representative Manabusin. Speaker Orsini.
Estaguizo.
Representative Ricky Orsini. Representative Kanata. Representative Quinley. Representative Kenga. Representative Butch Rubio. Representative Cara Rubio. Representative Salalila. Representative Santos. Representative Savea. Representative Shelton. Representative Shin. Representative Wang. Representative Gill. Representative Sabeti.
Would you now lead us into a roll call vote in third reading file? On resolution number 30, relative to the amendments recommended by the Guam Youth Congress of Bill 317 and to support the drug test policy of every new and continuing applicant under the Federal Welfare Assistance for Needy Families Program. Madam Secretary.
Representative Bujwani. Representative Cooper. Representative Lanuza. Representative Hills. Representative Ricky Orsini. Speaker Orsini.
As Speaker, I excuse my vote.
Representative Kanata. Representative Kenga. Representative Salalila. Representative Santos. Representative Wang. Representative Gill. Representative Sabeti. Representative Kanga. Representative Kanata. Representative Gill. Representative Sabeti. Representative Kanga. Representative Wang. Representative Kanga. Representative Kanata. Did you say
no.
you said no? Sinamasi. Representative Santos. Thank you.
Are there any other representatives that were not called on the voting sheet?
Hungan. Representative Gill. Is everyone accounted for? Sinamasi.
On resolution number 30, for the support of Bill 317, it passes with a total of 8 votes by this body. Now we move on to resolution number 31. Madam Secretary, if you lead us in a roll call vote.
Representative Bourjwani. Representative Cooper. Representative Hills. Representative Lanuza. Speaker Orsini.
I excuse my vote.
Representative Ricky Orsini. Representative Kanata. Representative Kanga. Representative Salalila. Representative Santos. Representative Wang. Representative Gill. Representative Sabeti.
Resolution number 31 passes unanimously. Now we move back to motions. Representative Kanga, you're recognized.
I'd like to place the body into Committee on Rules to address the issue of our standing rules.
Any objections?
None objections.
This session is now placed into Committee of a Whole.
Order. That's super loud. That's super loud. Okay. So there is, we need to address the open committee on decolonization and the Guam military buildup. The chair was Rita Lizama, although she's not in the body, so that committee would need a chairperson. Representative Kirigua.
May I offer a motion, Madam Chair? Check. Okay. So I make a motion to separate this committee into a committee on decolonization and a committee that will deal with the impending military buildup.
Would you like to speak on your motion?
Sure. Many of us have brought up the sentiment that these are two really separate issues that need separate attention. So that is basically the ideology behind creating the separate committee. This issue has come up during our first caucus, and the issue continues to worry some of our members. So I do offer this motion, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
I personally feel that they're all one issue, but I'm willing, I would support the motion simply because I understand that people want to get involved more and we can have more chairpersons and we can all work together in the committee. So, go ahead, support it, why not?
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on the issue of separating, or the motion of separating the Committee on Decolonization and Military Buildup? Okay, so are there any objections to the motion?
No objections.
Okay, so now we would, in our standing rules, section 16.10 would be Committee on Decolonization, and section 16.11 would be Committee on the Guam military buildup. Now, for the chairpersons of the committees, Speaker Orsini does appoint those chair people, but those who are interested, if you would like to speak to the body to help Speaker Orsini with his decision, first we would go with Committee on Decolonization. Who is interested? Okay, Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
I am interested in chairing this committee simply because I do plan on spending my entire life on this issue, especially with pursuing a degree in indigenous politics. This is an issue that's very dear to my heart. I feel it's the ailment to the social and economic problems of Guam, and I feel it's a pressing issue that has a lot of momentum right now, and I feel like I would like to be able to do my part to push the issue a little bit further. So if my fellow representatives here would just support me and allow me to have this position, I thank you gratefully. If not, then I will speak to you later.
Thank you, Representative Cooper. Representative Kinga, you're recognized.
Well, on that note, Representative Cooper, you may thank me gratefully because I do support your nomination to this committee. I raised my hand only to nominate you, but I think other representatives looked at me like we were gonna duke it out, but we won't. We won't. I strongly believe in the efforts of Representative Cooper. I think he's an intelligent man. He has his goals and his vision, and I think this would be the best representation that this Congress can afford in terms of finding our self-determination. So kudos to Representative Cooper, who will be running for senator one day, and we look forward to that in the future.
Viva. Thank you, Representative Kinga. Are there any other representatives that are interested for committee chair on decolonization? Okay, with that, nominations are closed. And Speaker Orsini can appoint the only nominee. Okay. So now let's all congratulate Representative Cooper on chairman of the Committee on Decolonization. Okay. And with section 16.11 of our standing rules on the Committee on the Guam military buildup, the chairman or chairwoman would have to work closely with Chairman Cooper, since they do go hand in hand. Who would be interested or would like to nominate anyone for the Committee on the Guam military buildup? Representative Hills.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a nomination for myself to take on as running for chair of the Committee on the Military Buildup.
Thank you. Are there any other nominees that would like to nominate themselves or others for the Committee on Guam military buildup? Okay, with Representative Kinga, do you have your hand up? Okay. Representative Kinga, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend or nominate Representative Bourgeois to the Guam military buildup.
Thank you, Representative Kinga. Representative Kitigo, you're recognized.
Is the co-chairship also an appointed position?
No, the co-chairship is chosen by the chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Representative Bourgeois, you are recognized on your nominee.
Well, first of all, Representative Kinga, thank you for your nomination. However, I'd like to decline the nomination only because Representative Hills, I believe, has more experience on the matter and knowledge on the matter. And if he agrees, I would be happy to be his co-chair and work together with him, and maybe someday become chairperson on the committee, and not right now.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Bourgeois. So are there any other nominations for the Committee on the Guam military buildup? Okay, with that, the speaker would choose who to appoint for the Committee on Guam military buildup. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. With the other issue, as discussed.
Can I say a few words?
Yes.
With this chairmanships of committees. Again, I'd just like to give you guys the idea and the passion to really use these committees to your advantage. Then again, the previous youth congresses, committees have been inactive. And with this one, I'm very happy with the chairmans that are already in place for all the other committees as well. That again, we need committees are essential to getting to like the basic and individual, besides this entire body. So basically we're breaking up the works between what this body essentially does to getting to the core in solving problems or getting the issues out there. So again, just really like to inspire the chairmen of the committees to really devote your utmost best to this position that you're put into, and as well to inspire, continually to inspire those members that will be in your committees to do the same as you do. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Speaker Sini. Okay. With Section 16.4, relative to the Committee on Public Relations, Public Accountability, Election Reform, Municipal Affairs, and Natural Resources, is there a motion on the floor relative to this section? Representative Kittigwa, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the benefit of the body, yesterday several of us did happen to caucus. It was a really eventful meeting. We actually decided that this very clustered committee could be broken up into a separate committee. As I was contemplating this, I think I would actually make the motion to create another committee dedicated to public relations and municipal affairs. And the reason I would prefer these two areas of concern to be put together, there is a looming reorganization bill for the Guam Youth Congress, and I think by pulling out these two committees, we can have more effective resolutions be brought out. Public relations would deal with education about the Guam Youth Congress, and by including municipal affairs, we as representatives can go into the villages and talk to them. Let them know the Guam Youth Congress is here. We can make these changes in the villages. We can do all these things in the government agencies. You know, we can affect these changes. Public relations would also inform the public, of course, of our sessions, of all the things we're doing, so they can also get involved. And I think an issue of this importance needs its own committee. And many of my colleagues have echoed my concern here. So I do make that motion to separate the committee into, or create another committee regarding public relations and municipal affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kittigwa. Just for clarification, the Committee on Public Relations would also include municipal affairs.
Yes.
Okay.
If you'll have that. I'm open to discussion about that, actually.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Speaker Sini.
just to clarify, can you distinguish the difference between a committee on public relations and the committee on media? What is the essential difference between those two?
With the Committee on Public Relations, it not only would relate to media, but also outreach with the community. So a committee on media would only relate to like our media interviews or attendance at certain events. But with Committee on Public Relations, it will encompass media and also the community affairs, outreach, and actually dealing with the people.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As well, I would oppose on having municipal affairs together with the public relations due to the fact that municipal affairs is more keen on focus within the villages itself. As already aware, public relations is such a huge duty that the chairperson and those members of those committees would have to be expected to do, because again, you know, you're literally trying to find people to become aware of Youth Congress and possibly even maybe become members one day. And that in itself is a huge duty, and I would really oppose to have them get another burden upon their things. So again, I really would like this committee to be more effective by just focusing only on public relations as compared to municipal affairs as well.
Okay. Thank you, Speaker. Yes, we should first vote. So your motion, Speaker, would be to have municipal affairs as its own committee. Are you making that motion?
I think I'm aware that municipal affairs already in itself is already an established committee. Is that correct?
It's in the Committee on public accountability, election reform, and natural resources.
I would rather keep it within that committee
That same-
than to be together with public relations.
Okay.
That is correct, Madam Chair. But not to
Not for both. Or not to have public relations with municipal
No.
affairs. Okay, so you wouldn't have, your motion is not to pull out municipal affairs and put it in its own committee.
No, but to leave
Leave
where
it.
municipal
Okay.
affairs is with natural
Okay.
resources and what have you, other committees under it.
Okay, thank
May-
you, Speaker.
May I pose a question to the body? If someone could enlighten me on this, what exactly would the Committee on Municipal Affairs entail? What kind of resolution?
If I could, Madam Vice Speaker.
Yes. Yes, Representative King.
The Committee on Municipal Affairs will work closely with the villages. There's a lot of concerns in regards to activities or whether we have enough youth facilities to sustain itself. So municipal affairs wouldn't be a promotion event. It would be where we as a committee go out to our respective mayors to seek whether there needs to be improvement on roads, there needs to be new basketball courts or tennis courts, whichever that may be. So in terms of this move, and I respect the sentiments of Speaker Orsini, we're looking at a committee that's geared towards the promotion of the Youth Congress, rather than focusing on areas in which we could help build on facilities for the youth to use. So we're looking for, I mean, at least for me, I'm hoping to see a public relations committee to help promote our image, help promote recruitment, and getting some viable members to the body. And we can have municipal affairs focus on more of the operational costs of what youth would like to see in the villages for themselves. No, I recommend that the public relations be the motive of the motion, and that municipal affairs maintain itself in its original form.
Thank you, Representative Kinga. And just to answer Representative Kittigo's question, under section 16.04, number 5, all matters relating to the Mayor's Council of Guam would be what municipal affairs would oversee. So I think we should vote on Representative Kittigo's motion, or would you like to change your motion?
May I make another clarification? So if the intention of the Public Relations Committee would be to promote the image of the Youth Congress, to recruit, effective membership, and to develop us as a body, how better to appeal to the youth and to the community than by actually being active in municipal affairs? If we're out there talking with the Mayor's Council saying, oh, another gym does need to be made, all these additions to the village need to be made, by having all these things in the same committee, this committee can bring it directly to the schools, to the groups of youth that they're talking to, saying, this is what we're doing. I'm just thinking that this is a relevant connection between municipal affairs. Am I shooting off here?
Thank you, Representative Kittigwa.
Vice
Representative
Speaker.
Kinga?
Great point. Fantastic for bringing that up. Although you bring up the points about working well with the municipal affairs, that's exactly right. But we're looking at the intent. If you're going to see the mayors to try to get a great youth to represent their village, that's one thing. Where municipal affairs would be focused on what concerns we have in the village, whether it's a repair of a basketball court and whatnot. So we're looking at establishing the public relations so that it stays that, where it stays at the recruitment or the promotion part. And it doesn't mean that you can't participate in municipal affairs, but I think it would take away too much from its current committee. So leaving it as is would be great. And then the promotion can if you can see where we're coming from or where I'm coming from, it's you're meeting them to find the fruit of their village, to find the youth that will come back and speak for them and speak for what they deserve or what they hope to get in regards to legislation. So does that explain it, the difference? Yeah. You're meeting them at the same time, yes, but you have different agendas. One agenda for promotions is just to get us promoted and to get us great members, while the other would be focused on, hey, this needs to be fixed. Okay.
Thank you, Speaker Kinga. Representative Bourgeois, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask if I could please be excused from the body. I have another commitment that I really need to go to. That I really need to be.
Are there any objections? Okay, with no objections. Madam Secretary, can you please note Representative Buchwani's absence? Or excuse it. Thank you. Okay, so we should, Representative Kenga, are you making a motion to, okay, you're gonna amend your motion? Okay.
So with that new light shed, if I may amend my motion to merely create another committee dealing with public relations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any objections to Representative Kittigawa's amendment just to pull out public relations out of section 16.5 and have it on its own in section 16.12? Okay, with no objections, section 16.12 of our standing rules would refer to the Committee on Public Relations. And its purview would be relations to local media. Yeah, relations to local media. Okay. And are there any other motions referring to any of the other committees or creating a new standing committee? Representative Kittigawa, you're recognized.
Maybe just add to the duties of public relations, just to streamline all our housekeeping and all our note-taking, that the Public Relations Committee would not only deal with the media in talking about the actions of the Youth Congress, but would also be required to outreach and education about the Youth Congress, if that makes sense.
Outreach.
So not only are we telling them we exist, we're also saying we want you to exist with us, if that makes any sense.
So with that, for the purview, under for purview 2 of section 16.12 would be all matters relating to community outreach, correct?
And recruitment?
Okay, maybe we can make that number 3. Okay. Are there any other matters that this committee would need to cover? Okay, with no other suggestions for purview. Are there any other motions regarding standing committees? Representative Kenga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. I'd like to propose the development of a new committee. That will be the Committee on Organization and Representative Affairs, in which would obtain purview over the reintroducing of new members or the appointments of such, and would also address in terms of what do you call vacancies and the other one where they miss attendance and they're being brought forth towards termination.
Okay. Are there any? Oh, I'm sorry.
Such rules shall be determined by its committee and presented to the body at its next regular session.
Okay. Are there any objections on Speaker Kenga's motion to create a new standing committee on organization and representative affairs? Okay, with no objections, section 16.13 would refer to Committee on Organization and Representative Affairs, and under its purview would be all matters relating to vacancies. And number 2, all matters relating to appointments. And 3 would be all matters relating to attendance. Are there any other purviews anyone would like to add? Representative Kenga?
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. I would also like to suggest that the current nominations or resolutions brought before the body and any future be referred to that committee for its review, and then after the committee's review be sent towards the body for approval.
Okay. Are there any objections? Okay. With that objection, with that motion and no objections, the motion passes. Are there any nominations for chair of section 16.12, the Committee on Public Relations? Representative Kinga?
On nominations for public relations,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Representative Kirigua.
Representative Kidegwa, do you accept the nomination?
I do, and if I may speak on that.
And Madam Vice Speaker, if I could, I'd like to tag along that Representative Dolores Santos, last name? Representative Santos serve as her co-chair.
Okay. Representative Santos, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair for the Committee on Public Relations? Okay, with no other nominations, Speaker Orsini appoints the chair.
Chairwoman of the Committee on Public Relations is Representative Tiffany Kirigua.
Yes, and the chairwoman or chairman of any committee, I guess, appoints or chooses his or her co-chair. So Representative Kidego, would you have Representative Santos as your co-chair?
On that nomination, Representative Santos, the reason I would like to be the chair of this committee, I believe it was in my senior year that I heard about the Guam Youth Congress, and I was very sad to have heard about it so late. So what I would like to do with the committee is ensure that our youth hear about us as soon as possible, so that we may sooner be an effective body, that they may help us effectuate change at their soonest. And I have actually identified another individual who has experience in this field. Our previous speaker, Representative Derek Hills, I have actually spoken with him about this committee. He's done great outreach and great media cooperation with the Congress, and he does have a foot in the community. And I would like, if that is within my jurisdiction, to appoint Representative Hills so that we may be really effective in outreaching to the public. Point of order.
Representative Hills, you're recognized.
Sainamasi, Madam Chair. Actually, as good leaders and as good Democrats, we like to be a party of inclusiveness and integration, not segregation. But I would like to state for the party and the body to know I do endorse the co-chair selectee for Dolores, because it's very easy just to provide the information and the contact for the media and all other individuals needed for this process to start and begin and be effective. But I do believe that if there is need for the Public Relations Committee for support, I am there for them. But I do believe that we can have another fine woman take on that challenge. So I do endorse her selection.
Thank you, Representative Hills. Representative Kinga, you're recognized. Yes. Yes. I
Thank
see
you.
your point. Yes. With usually, in most cases, the appointment for chair would be appointed by the speaker. But with the motion and no objections, you're correct, Speaker Kinga, that with your motion there were no objections, and the body must honor with no objections that Representative Santos was co-chair.
Not a problem. I didn't catch the inclusion. Little
Okay.
catchy hearing. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, section 16.2 on public relations, Chair Tiffany Kidigwa and co-chair Dolores Santos. And with 16.13, referring to the Committee on Organization and Representative Affairs, are there any nominations for chair? Representative Cooper, you're recognized.
I'd like to nominate Representative Jesse Kinga to chair the committee. I think he is an excellent representative, and plus he's the one who brought up this committee, so I think he should have the honor, the opportunity to be the one who leads it, since it was his brainchild. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cooper. Are there any objections? Or that's a nominee. Are there any other nominees for chair on the Committee on Organization and Representative Affairs? Okay, with no other nominees, Speaker Orsini.
With due respect, I like to go Chairwoman of Public Relations is Ms. Tiffany Kidigwa, along with Vice Chair, Mr. Representative Dolores Santos, and the new chairman for the newly created, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
16.13, Organization and Representative Affairs.
Chairman of the Organization Affairs is Ms. Representative Jesse Kinga.
Okay. Are there any other motions? Okay, with that, we'll go on a 2-minute recess.
Session is now called back to order. Representative Kinga, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to place a motion to remove from table Bill number 7 and to bring forth back into second reading file.
Are there any objections? Bill number 7 is now moved to the second reading file.
Mr. Speaker, may I suggest to you appoint an acting presiding officer, since this is your bill, so that you can discuss and debate your bill?
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be Vice Speaker Orsini.
Session is now called to order. Speaker Orsini, you're recognized.
Madam Vice Speaker, this bill, number 7, is relative to the reorganization of the Guam Youth Congress. Was recently introduced on last session, but later was referred back to committee. Now the bill has come back to committee, and I would like to place the floor open for discussion and debate for any speakers who would like to speak on the bill.
Are there any objections? Okay. So with that, the bill on the reorganization is in the second reading file for discussion and debate.
I'm sorry, Madam Vice Speaker. I would like to make a motion to go through the bill line by line in each section, so then those members present here and those members that are not as well will be more coherent with what the bill entails and the meanings, and again, I would really love to hear more about what my fellow colleagues would have to say about it.
Speaker Orsini, just to clarify, was your motion to put the bill on reorganization of Youth Congress into the second reading file?
It is already in the second reading file, Madam Vice Speaker. It's just I make a motion to stall the floor for open discussion and debate so I can go through it word by word, and then again people can contribute when every line is being brought up. An act to repeal and reenact Chapter 7 of the Guam Code annotated. On subsection 7101, the name from what is now the Guam Youth Congress will be changed to the Guam Youth Legislature. There is within the legislative branch of the government of Guam a Guam Youth Legislature. Its functions are here of the same as what is now in the Guam Youth Congress. But what makes it different is third paragraph within subsection 102 on functions is the youth legislature shall hold a youth conference at least once a year to report and discuss essential matters pertaining to the youth of Guam. Yes, we're going to line item by line item.
Representative Hills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an inquiry and maybe an amendment if it leads to it, but in the previous Youth Congress, it came to about the idea that maybe we could change and amend that line item 4, that subsection, to make it not the youth legislature, but the duty of the speaker to provide an address by the Guam Youth Congress speaker rather than a conference, because you notice that every leader, the governor of Guam, the island, state of the island address, the Guam delegate, the Guam judiciary, the speaker, do provide their addresses, and I believe maybe it could be the duties of the speaker to provide an address to the youth of Guam. It could be provided here in the legislative hall or even on radio every week or bi-weekly, however you like to do that. But I know that we are struggling as a youth congress to get members to, to continue our process consistently. But I think with the speaker, it should be his responsibility or her responsibility to provide that address. Maybe that would be something to think about. But if so, the body does decide that we should go with the conference. It would take a lot of cooperation and time planning to do that, but with an address by the speaker, be provided within 2 to 3 pages of an address to the youth of Guam. Maybe it can happen down at a school, on the radio, or even here at the legislature.
Madam Vice Speaker, I'm very open to Representative Hill's amendment. I think that is a great idea that amendment should be put into this bill. But the intention of having the conference is not necessarily for the Youth Congress itself or even the speaker himself, him or herself. It's more so to hold a conference that gathers together the entire youth of Guam and to hear the issues that they would like to be brought up. As an example that just happened recently here in the Guam legislature was the Guahan Youth Summit, which was sponsored by, together with the Youth Congress as well as the Close Up organization, that what they did was they prepared the youth in getting together policy through research and things that are done, that what are the matters that are most important to them. The factor that I would really like to see the Youth Congress have is being able to sponsor their own conference in itself, and to really, grasp the ideas of the youth and what they want to see prevail within their community.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Kittigwa, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I acknowledge the concern in both of the comments, and I think one way we can meet at a middle ground is maybe move the Guam Youth Legislature shall hold a conference. Maybe if we could move that from functions to maybe duties. There is a subsection here under duties. So if we could mandate that every youth legislature that is necessary to hold this conference, if we could move it to duties, I don't see why that would conflict with the need for an address. But I do echo Representative Hill's ideas here that maybe the speaker should hold this address to the entire island. Thank you.
Speaker Sini, would you like to speak on that comment?
So, Madam Vice Speaker, I think first we will have to vote on Representative Hill's amendment towards adding in, was that a new line, Representative Hills? Or a new subsection?
Actually, I understand where the author is coming from in terms of holding a collective conference to get ideas, but he did mention that just recently, last week, we did hold a close-up, the DC close-up organization held a summit, which happens every annual year, and different organizations do host it. They do come up with very good and collective ideas to propose to the legislature, which I think there has been no problem lately of how they're, going about it and conducting that summit. So I just don't want to put too much pressure on the Youth Congress or the future youth legislature if this bill goes through, when we have to pertain to harder, more important issues too, which of course come from the youth. But I know that maybe organizations like the Close Up and Sanctuary and all other organizations can help us assist that, which they're doing, I think, pretty well fine on that. So I'm going to withdraw that, that it wasn't an amendment, it was just a suggestion. So I would withdraw the suggestion. Maybe we can think about that down the line for speaker's address. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hills. So Representative Hills withdraws his suggestion.
So I think the bill stays as is in that part? Okay. Representative Kittigwa?
Representative Kittigwa, did you have an amendment? Okay, so Speaker Sini would continue reading his bill line by line.
Next, subsection 7103, based on membership. The youth legislature shall be composed of not to exceed 15 members to be known as youth senators, to be elected from the areas listed below. The Northern District of Guam, to represent the municipalities of Dededo, Jigo, and Tumuning, Tumon, will have 5 youth senators. The Central District of Guam, to represent the municipalities of Montoto, Maiti, Chalampago, Ordot, Pidi, Asan Maina, Hagutnia, Aganya Heights, Sinahanya, Barragata, and Mangilao, with 4 youth senator seats. The Southern District of Guam, to represent the municipalities of Santa Rita, Zotnia, Agate, Talafofo, Yamatek, Inarajan, and Maritzu, will have 3 youth senator seats. The University of Guam with 2, and the Guam Community College with 1. If there are no objections,
Are there any amendments or discussion on those lines mentioned? Representative Kinga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. I'd like to bring attention to line 18, Southern District of Guam, to represent the municipalities of Santa Rita, Jonia, Agate, Talafofo, Yamatek, and Rohan and Maritzo. May I point out that these villages aren't the smallest, and I think 3 youth senators to I guess represent all of them would be a little unjust. And maybe I'm biased because I'm from Agate, but I think that perhaps we can take a look at increasing their numbers. I think 4 is fair if we're going to give Central District 4, or we could switch it. I think we just received our 2010 census, and based on that information, we can get a better grasp as to what is fair, what is one man, one vote, in a sense, to the youth on our island. So I'm really just wanting to lobby, since I want to represent our village, or my village. I want to lobby that the Southern should deserve more votes. I believe for too long we haven't had a chance to speak up. Mind you, the Youth Congress, we've had the Speaker of Youth Congress for about 18 to 20 years, all from the village of Agate, for the exception of the current Speaker, Orsini. No pun intended, but Speaker Hills, myself, in the 26th, we see that we get a lot of interest, a lot of feedback from the South, and I think if my colleagues would allow, we can afford the opportunity for the Southern students to be more involved in our Congress.
Thank you, Speaker Kinga. Would that be an amendment you're proposing, or just an issue for the committee to resolve at caucus?
We'll move the section back to the author to bring forth an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Representative Kanata, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I motion to make an amendment to the GCC only having 1 and UOG having 2.
You would change which line to read what and strike out which?
To strike out GCC only being 1 and make it 2
Okay.
representatives, because UOG has 2, so to make it even with them.
So your amendment would be for UOG to have 2 representatives and GCC to have 1.
No, GCC for them to be equal, both having 2.
So GCC would have 2
Yes.
and UOG would have 2. That's your
Yes.
amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
On Representative Kanata's amendment that GCC would have 2 seats and the University of Guam had 2 seats. Are there any objections? Okay. There are 2 objections on the floor. Representative Kenga, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. I just plainly object to the motion.
Okay. Speaker Orsini,
I plainly object to the motion.
okay. Would you guys like to speak on your objection? Okay. Yes. Representative Kirigoy, you're recognized.
If I may make the suggestion, it seems like an uneven distribution of votes to either the district or the school. That's what's being debated here. If we could do the one man, one vote kind of dispersion, so if every term we could get a distinct number from each school, we could then reallot the seats. Same thing with the districts. So it wouldn't be the same every year as population rises. And we could also look at the distribution of the villages. I think maybe the North could use another village, or, I think this maybe needs to go back into committee so we could get actual numbers from the census.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with Representative Kirigoy's motion to refer the bill back to committee, are there any objections?
Objection. Objection. We can amend it right now.
Okay. So it would be amended to?
If I could, Madam Vice Speaker.
Yes,
That's a great
Representative
point. So I think because of the great discussion we're having here, if I could, to strike out lines 11 through 24 in its entirety. Or I'm sorry, lines 7 through 24. The area concerning membership. And how we can amend this is we can keep its current statute provided by Guam law, in which every 1,000 residents in the village constitutes a seat in the Youth Congress.
So your amendment would be to strike out lines 7 to 24?
Correct.
Okay.
And any future amendments can be proposed in the coming times, but at least for now, we can move forward with the rest of the reorganization bill unless is this the meat of it?
Okay, so with Representative Kenga's amendment to strike out line 7 to 24,
It's
are
also
there
to scratch out the schools, but to keep UOG and GCC
the seats
as
allotted.
conferred.
Are there any objections? Okay, with no objections, lines 7 to 24 are signed out. So Speaker Senior, are you going to continue to read your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next part, subsection 7104, eligibility of representatives and electorate. No person shall be eligible to vote for a youth senator or sit in the youth legislature who has not attained the age of 16 years or be 25 prior to the expiration of the term for which he seeks to qualify as a voter or as a member, or who has been convicted of a felony or crime involving moral turpitude and has not received a pardon restoring his civil rights. So the basic change, Madam Vice Speaker, is the age qualifications as a member is you must be 16 to vote and to be a part of the Youth Congress, and you must not be 25 prior to the expiration of the term.
Speaker Orsini, did you have an amendment? Okay. Representative Kanata, you're recognized.
If I'm correct, I'm only 15, and his bill is talking about changing the age limit to 16 to 25 or before 25. So that would make me removed from the body because of the age change. Yes, 16 and July 15.
Speaker Orsini, this bill would take into effect next term.
Next term, that is correct, Madam
So,
Vice Speaker.
Representative Kanata, you would still be in Youth Congress. And if you're 15 now, you would be turning 16 next year. So you can run for re-election. And if you are re-elected, you would be in Youth Congress. You're welcome. Representative Hills, you're recognized.
I actually have just two questions. One question is for the eligibility will actually to be a part of regarding the amount of representatives per village based upon population. We are no longer entertaining high schools. Just village now. Oh, okay. Now, secondly, since we're not entertaining high schools, just villages, but those youth who are in high school, because we have it pegged at 16, right now in this introduction, I just want to know if someone comes up to me and they're 9th grade and they're only 14, 15 years old and haven't attained age of 16, what is my reply to them? Because the current law says 14, but what would I tell them if we pass this new law? Because, we are trying to be inclusive, but if they're only 9th grade and they're only 14 or 15 and they haven't been 16 yet, what would I tell them?
Madam Vice Speaker.
Representative Kenga, you're recognized.
And that's a good point, Speaker Hills. And may we note that in order to run for Guam legislature, you have to be 25 of years, but you don't have to just represent that demographic and over. We still take into account all the others that are a part of our island community. Same with the Youth Congress. We're setting a threshold as to who can gain a seat and maybe concentrate our membership so that we can have a more responsible group. But just because you have to be 16 and we eliminate the school position doesn't mean we can't represent them. Because in a sense, you don't eliminate their duties. If you're elected at the district, you're elected by your peers, but you still serve your community. You still serve those individuals who aren't eligible to run or vote. So I like to just throw that comparison with the Guam legislature having to represent all of our people, even though you have to be 25 at least, and then the Youth Congress having to be at least 16.
Thank you, Representative Kinga. Representative Hills?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to get a question answered from the author or if any representatives. What is the justification for changing the age from 14 to 16?
Speaker Orsini, would you like to speak on that as author?
Basically, the justification is that, as you've seen with the patterns of the way Youth Congress has gone, is, again, membership is dwindling. Some people don't even show up. The assurance of getting people who are 16 is one, most likely I think they would have their own driver's license. So that's assuring that they will be showing up for session. Again, it's just that whole experience in doing research and being known of what the way the process is and being more held accountable, within your community as compared to, someone who is younger. But I'm not saying that all people are like that. Not all people below the age of 16 are like that, because I myself, I think when I was 13, I was ready. I wanted to really run for governor already, just having that drive and that passion. But then again, we're doing this in a majority sense of how majority of those who are younger than 16 is responding. How is it that they're reacting to the issues that are happening within our community, and are they being that proactive in wanting to do something? Again, I'm not saying this is everyone, but again, we're just considering the majority. And then again, I think that's up to our body to really try to change that within our youth community, is to get them more proactive.
Thank you, Speaker Orsini. Representative Hills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Speaker Orsini and the author of the bill for answering my inquiry. With that, I'd like to make a very small amendment. Maybe it could be a compromised amendment, but I would like to make an amendment to line 2 of this subsection, changing and altering the age from 16 to 15. Because it keeps at that threshold of the freshmen in high school, but it also reflects the commitment that our non-driver's license individual over here was worried about, but he is finding a way to get to session. So I like to reflect our inclusiveness, not just for the majority, because we are a party. For Democrats, we just don't pertain to majority, but also those in minority needs. But I like to just kind of reflect it. Hopefully it's a compromise amendment, but I like to amend it to read, instead of age 16, it'll be age 15. Just 1 year difference.
Thank you, Representative Hills. On Representative Hills' amendment, are there any objections? Was there an objection? Okay, no objections, just to clarify. So that line would read from 16 to 15. Speaker Orsini, are you going to continue to read your bill?
Yes. Subsections of vacancies, it is the same thing as it is now, that in case of a vacancy occurring 1 year prior to the next general election, because the member can no longer qualify to represent the entity from which the member is elected. So that is the same as what it is now in the Guam Youth Congress.
Madam Vice.
Representative Kinga, you're recognized.
I'd just like to state, before anyone gets confused, because we reverted back to the original verbiage of the law, we're not making those district elections. These vacancies are consistent with the verbiage of the bill.
Thank you. Speaker Orsini.
Next, subsection 7106 on sessions. Regular sessions of the Youth Legislature shall be held each third Saturday of the year, exclusive of holidays, commencing the third Saturday in November, and shall continue for 1 calendar year. Sessions shall be held in the Legislative Chamber of the Guam Legislature. So basically, the change with this is entailing that a term for if this is enacted, that the next term for future youth congresses will be 1 calendar year. Will be a 1 year term as compared to what it is now in a 2 year term. And a 1 year term has been enacted before with previous youth congresses. I'm not too sure when the 2 year term came to be, but this is again to give, somewhat a rotation of fresh ideas within this body for future years to come, and to get again more youth involvement. As again, some people, they do graduate or then they move off island to go attend higher education or what have you.
Speaker Orsini, are you going to proceed with reading your bill?
Madam Speaker, I would like to make a motion to excuse Representative Lanuza from further attendance and voting.
Are there any objections?
No
Okay,
objection.
with no objections, Madam Secretary, can you please note his absence? Thank you. Representative Wang, you're recognized. Okay, are there any objections? Okay. Madam Secretary, can you also duly note Representative Wang's absence? Representative Gill, you're recognized. Are there any objections on Representative Gill's absence? Okay, with no objections, Madam Secretary, can you please note of Representative Gill's absence? Representative Kinga, you're recognized.
Thank you. I wouldn't like to be excused. I think we're just finished this. If I could, if there are no other amendments, notwithstanding the procedures that we were currently getting into, Mr. Speaker, we could call for the placing of this bill into third reading file, and then I'd like to call for adjournment.
Are there any objections to Representative Kinga's motions?
No objections.
Okay, with no objections, the bill on the reorganization of Youth Congress is placed into the third reading file. Is there any motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Okay, with the second, we adjourn session is adjourned at 1:09 p.m.